Joining me today is Kyle Motzkus and Danny Gredinberg. They spoke at the Southeast Collision Conference on building a bulletproof repair plan. They said they had a lot of great engagement with everybody that joined in their class. They had standing room only. The house was packed. And once you hear them chat today, you're going to understand why. Enjoy.
Welcome to Body Bangin, your podcast for all things body. Autobody, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Body Bangin podcast, where we are talking with folks that spoke at the Southeast Collision Conference. And before we get into it, we have got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Lombard Equipment. If you are even thinking about buying equipment, you need to get a hold of them. Their information is in the show notes below, so make sure you hit them up. They're the best when it comes to purchasing new or refurbished equipment. So now we're going to get over to the dynamic duo, the one and only Kyle Motzkus and Danny Gredinberg. What's up, boys?
What's going on? Should I do my little dance like I did last?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yes, I'm bummed that I missed your class. I didn't get to see it in person. I heard it was really good. And when I'm reading the title of it, it's called Self-Confidence, an Advanced Repair Plan You Can Expand On. What in the world does that even mean? Like, I read the description, I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, that title, though, who came up with that?
Actually, I did with help from Danny. This was a presentation that me and Danny had just been tweaking and working on, and it kind of the idea started when we did a webinar for Kansas Autobody Association, Missouri and Nebraska, and it was originally like a quick hour and a half webinar, and then we just started talking, and from there we started creating this like monumental sort of presentation that culminated into this big 6-hour thing. And then we just decided to condense it.
Wow. 6 hours.
It basically takes the average technician or estimator, whomever's in the class, and it allows them to see the ability, one, to, the facts of what to write when there's, stuff that's not included, and how to appropriately, if need be, explain that to the client. So it kind of takes, the specialties that Danny has and then the specialties that I have and kind of brings them all together.
Yeah, I like it.
It was a great time. I mean, like I said, we've been doing this together. This is our second event together that we presented on kind of the process from the very beginning all the way until the completion, but having to really bring that into like an hour time slot and just going through some of the conversations that are occurring. And it really starts with a proactive approach, getting that customer involved and having that conversation based on the facts. Because we know that, obviously repair planning takes a great amount of research, investigating, digesting the information. But then you got to convey that message over to, to the customer, which is the one that ultimately authorizes that repair, but B, to the bill payer who is just working based on an experience of a certain, market, willing to accept, whatever versus, these are the facts of that repair that is required to be performed, right? So the manufacturer always states what's done.
Yeah, and I read in the description, it talked about creating a bulletproof repair plan supported by facts. And I love that little line. So is that, I know there's a lot that goes into it, but is that kind of the crux of it so that there's not this questioning, guessing, it's just, it is what it is type of situation? And let us show you why.
So the first goal for anyone, having that, creating that repair plan is it's not an emotion. It's really sticking to those facts of what that repair requires, and documenting that repair plan to the T, crossing your T's, dotting your I's, referencing back to the manufacturer's document, what, owner's manual, repair manual information. And we're the repair experts, right? We're here to fix your car. That's all we're going to do. It's not emotional.
Yeah.
And really, sticking to that fact there, and not getting caught off guard with, that's not necessary, that's not required. That throughout the country, really being compared to shops who may not realize the information exists. And really, I think Kyle and I really want to show is that information does exist. So you can create that evidence package. I mean, it's a bulletproof file as an evidence package, which you got to support and you got to provide, to support everything you're doing. Kyle, I mean, you do this. I mean, Kyle does this every day. I mean, he's on the front lines, working with the customers, and I'm kind of the guy that helps support that information, where to navigate that in the estimating guides and the P pages. So Kyle, I mean, he really shared that message from the raw perspective. I mean, that's what I heard out there was, it was raw. It was really real when they hear not just, someone who can just tell you what to do, but it's also, what someone does to firsthand to really get this done.
Danny couldn't have said it any better, Mickey. So basically that's the crux of it, creating this bulletproof repair plan, a document, everything that culminates into the story of the repair and how you present it to the customer, whether you get technical, because not every, again, like we talked about in our podcast, not every customer is the same. Some people are technical and can understand that and dig that. Some people don't care about any of it, but they still want the car repaired correctly. They just want to know how you're going to convey that message to the bill payer or whomever's tackling the bill. But the crux of it that you had is correct. It is whenever we see, or whenever, we as the collision repair industry take these repair planning classes and stuff, it's often from the top looking down. We get this lesson from and I'm going to quote Danny from a text message the other day. We get this perspective from the 30,000 view. We're up in the nosebleeds and the bleachers. We're up in the sky looking down, and that's where a lot of these consultants and everyone are teaching from. Is they're teaching from that sort of place. Whereas me and Danny take this approach. Whereas Danny's been on the front lines, and now he's administrator of arguably the most important part of the collision industry, and I'm directly on the front lines telling you these are the things that works for me. Here's what we do collectively. Here's what we know. Here's the facts. Let's tweak it to see what works for you. And the important part is our presentation is unique in the manner that we are engaging the audience. I can't tell you how many times I probably interrupt Danny, where I go in there and I'm forcibly asking people questions. I'm walking there, I'm throwing a ball at you to get you to answer a question, or I'm pointing at you, and we bring the sauce, man. And I want people to get engaged, because that's how they learn. It sparks, and they're like, oh man, I want to get down in that class again, or I like learning from these two guys, because they play off each other, and they're on my level. They're talking to me. This guy used to learn how to do things on an English wheel. So that's how these classes are looked at. And that's what's exciting. But I think that's you, Danny, struck it on the head. That's the point that's getting across.
Yeah. And you guys talked about, this is a super short snippet of a podcast. And we could always do one later that it talks more about what you guys talk about in your class. But there's so many pieces of this that shops are hungry for when I was looking through the description, because it's that all sounds good, but what does that look like? How do I actually go implement that in my shop? Do you feel like that is, from your perspective, what you're seeing, why shops are so hungry, and why when you guys do this class, it's like standing room only kind of thing?
Yeah. Speaking with different, attendees, and, kind of hearing the why, why they're there, what is it that they're seeking? And, the number one thing is, obviously, I'm just here to learn from another perspective, from outside of, what I'm, from this immediate, vicinity. And just, how can I help expand my business, or how can I help capture another one or two operations? Because, one thing that can happen is you go to a class, and this is something that And I teach this for other OEMs, when I do teaching for collision advice, for some of the manufacturer training, is we can give you a long list of operations. We can give you the sheet right here, right? But if you don't go into it with the confidence of being able to explain it based on what you read, what you researched, it's going to be miserable. It's going to be hard. So really take one or two bits of information and apply it, get comfortable with it. And that's where really, we want to, show people that it's not an overnight process.
Yeah.
Be real with it, right? It's not unobtainable, but it's not an overnight process either. It's going to require baby steps, small wins, big victories is the best way to put it. You got to look at that, model and see, okay, this operation is something that I'm maybe already doing, but I'm not explaining it in the right way. And really, I hear this all too often, how do I get creative and explain that in a different way? And it's like, you don't have to. You just got to stick to the language that's already there in the guides, in the P pages, in the manufacturer's documents, because it's not about getting creative. It's all about staying within the documents that already exist there and not making an emotional conversation.
That's a really good point.
That's the great part of the class. And that's it. Hopefully this might elaborate and help answer the question, Mickey, is people, like I just mentioned before, when people are going to these repair planning classes that the various consultants are throwing, they're getting exactly what Danny just said, this long list of operations, like these estimating groups where they talk about a quarter panel one day and they show you how you can write a 420 line quarter panel that takes up 2 different ROs because in CCC it maxes out. But and then they show you a different day on how to negotiate that. But you try to take these things you learned and line by line and you try to implement that, and then it doesn't work for you, and then you sit there and you wonder why. It's because it wasn't meant to work for you. What should work for you is sticking to the facts and then figuring out what works for you. You're going to hear no 1,000 times before you hear yes. But when you hear yes, you're going to understand what works for you. And it's usually just sticking to the facts instead of trying all these fancy mind reading techniques and all this other good stuff that people talk about. You got to stick to the facts. That's literally the backbone of what me and Danny are talking about the entire time, is sticking to the facts. Factual, evidential conversation. It's most important with the client. It's most important with whoever's paying the bill. As long as you convey that and you do it so confidently, it should work in your favor. It may not every time, but it should work in your favor.
So basically, don't overcomplicate it with all the other things.
What's that cliche phrase that everyone throws out? Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, right. KISS. Yes. So did you guys get a lot of questions in your class, or was it more you just picking on people?
I was the picker, I'm the person just kind of massaging the back.
Yeah.
It's like trying to smooth things over here. No, I think the conversations were good, obviously for the essence of time of, we didn't want to keep people between their drinks and in our class at the end of the day. But no, the conversations were good, and I think it's, they're provoking that mindset of like, okay, I think there was a conversation about, safety inspections. We're going through the topic of safety inspections, and just letting them know it's, there's resources out there for them, right? There's ways that they can, learn more about certain, we can go into details more and more, right? And there's really about utilizing the resources, and don't be afraid to ask at the end of the day. And don't be afraid to, ask the questions, and find out the why, or find out, where that information exists. There's so much information out there, and it can be cumbersome to navigate all this stuff. So really, it's don't be afraid to ask. Speak up and reach out to your peers, and reach out to Kyle, myself, Mike, Anderson, whoever it is. Make friends at the event.
Yeah,
really talk about what's working for each other. Build that as a group.
Yeah. Anything you wanted to say, Kyle?
I love silly cliches and analogies, and one of my favorite things that always helps me, because my brain is so ADHD, it's insane. And one of the things that really helps me out is understanding what, when, where, why, and how. like the vowels of the question, so to speak. And that, if I had to sum up our presentation, whether albeit the long or the condensed version, I would say it's the what, when, where, why, and how of repair planning.
So I feel like you guys are just giving me a bunch of teasers.
Question,
we just gotta get there. You just gotta we just need to get there and watch the whole thing, because there's so much. And it's one of those things that, like, I'm sure you could, I guess a good question would be, since we don't, this isn't a big, long thing. And I realized I didn't even introduce like where you guys were from, because I know you so well. I'm like, doesn't everybody? So Kyle is the manager of, Kyle's the manager of Hunter Autobody and also on the Missouri Autobody Association. Danny Gredinberg is the wonderful person in charge at the DEG, the Database Enhancement Gateway. And the DEG is an awesome resource. He actually did a podcast. I'll put a link to it where we actually talk about what it is and how you can use it for your benefit when writing up a repair plan. So we won't get into that now. But now that I did that at the end of the show, question for you guys would be, so for people that couldn't make it out and are listening to this now, anything from the class that you feel like at least somebody could walk away with this, and this would be really helpful. And maybe it is just stop overcomplicating it and stick to the facts. Maybe that's it. Anything maybe that came to your mind when I said that, other than that?
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things that we showed was Kyle had a vehicle that came to their shop, really minor, looking impact, and, something very textbook, rear-ended, and no one would have ever assumed, based on, looking at the damages there. And we're talking about just a large dent on a lift gate, some bumper damage, that, the vehicle would have the type of damage that it ended up having, resulting in, a diamond and a sway condition, et cetera, et cetera. And really it comes down to implementing a process to thoroughly find that damage and locate that damage and documenting that damage, to discover that up front, because there's so much wasted time that could be found in the repair process. Had we not done that investigation up front, had we not done that research, the diagnostic approach, and measuring the car up front, only to find out in the middle, if not maybe at the end of the repair or after the fact, that the car, still has damage that possibly got overlooked.
Right.
Really, it's about, the safety of the consumer. The consumer is the one that really you got to look out for, and really implementing a process that's consistent throughout, no matter how big or how small. It's always the small one that always ends up biting us in the butts.
Right.
The big ones just fly through the shop, but really keep consistent on that, right? And, to the repair planning, and, and don't feel like you're constrained because you got, 30 other cars waiting in line behind you, and you got to get through it. I get it. There's a production. I get it. You got to be efficient. I get it. You got all these things, obstacles in front of you, but you really got to commit that time to every file that you come across, and really point that out. We had an individual come up after the class and say, with the amount of research that goes into repair planning, I can't afford, that time, because, what happens if that car is not repairable, maybe based on all this research? I go, well, that's the car dictating that. I mean, you didn't make that decision. It's not me to decide what gets fixed or not. I mean, ultimately, the damage on the car dictates if it's going to, based on the outcome, on the available information, if it's going to go through the process and get repaired. I don't make that decision, right? And there's really one way to fix a car, and that's the right way.
Good point. I like it. Kyle, anything you wanted to throw in there as your takeaway?
If I was a collision repair shop owner, estimator, whatever, if I had, and actually, it's kind of funny, I didn't get to do my normal thing. Normally, I like to walk around and specifically rip and pick on everyone at the end of the class. I like to ask them, what is one takeaway? Because it's kind of like my thing, like, well, you paying attention, give me one takeaway you got from this class. But I could see the eyes and the paying attention in the class. And if I could tell one takeaway, it was that our whole goal was that people left the room feeling more confident in attacking a repair plan and possibly switching over, or at least garnishing at least one more item that their technicians are completing. The goal was to make them more confident. And I can very confidently myself say that I think the room left more confident than they came in.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Well, you guys speak together quite a bit now, it seems like. Oh, do you have any upcoming events you'll be doing this at for those that are listening?
Nothing officially on the books yet.
Okay.
Just stay tuned. I mean, just keep your eyes eyes open and ears peeled for that upcoming event. And the biggest thing is attend every seminar you get an opportunity to attend. And there's a lot of great speakers out there. Do you have to agree with every single bit of information out there? No. And that's the beautiful part about this. Is you can simply take a bit of information. You just leave the rest alone if that's what it is. And right. That's information to empower you, to help you and see what works for you. So my takeaway is, attend everything that you hear out there and make it possible. And as an owner or manager, get your staff to attend these events as well. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to, stop an operation. I get it. But these are the people that are essentially making that business operate, right? I mean, I get it. The owners and managers, want to be there, but we got to get our estimators, we got to get our repair planners, get the technicians there, to sit firsthand and hear and live and engage, right? And that's the other thing is network and engage. Because there's a lot to be, there's a lot out there that we can all do better on. And I think that's an opportunity there when it comes down to education.
Yeah, it feels like there's so many people with their heads in the sand. And even when you get the owners and the managers out to conferences and seminars and things like that, when you take information back, it just doesn't hit the same way. And you forget a lot of things and you miss out on things that they would have picked up on that maybe didn't hit you, but would have hit them in a different way. So I see the shops that bring their whole teams out, and those shops are typically really high performing shops. And there's a reason for that, because they're all getting exposed. They're all learning. It's a culture type thing. So I agree, Danny. I think it would be so empowering if, make the time. Nobody actually has, you're not going to have the time if it's a choice. You have to make the choice to make the time.
Make the 25th hour work, make that 25th hour happen.
If you will do something, you'll do something if you'll make the time to do something if you want to. When people go through, and I mean, I see this all the time in the fitness world and MMA and everything else. People are always like, oh, I'd love to train. I just don't have the time. Like, well, my friend, I run a business. I'm trying to start my own business. I have 3 kids. I do this. I do that. I volunteer with association work. I constantly travel for work, and I still train 5 to 6 days a week. So if you want to do something, you will make the time to do it.
Right. Yeah. Time is a choice. I agree 100%. Well, thank you guys for coming on. I would have loved to get deeper into this, but these are shorter episodes. So I'm holding back all the bazillion questions that I have. But I think we gave people some good information. Let me know when you guys are going to be speaking again, and I'll definitely share it on my social media for people to see, because this is a piece of the puzzle that, this is what collision business is about. I mean, it's a big piece of it, right? Like when we've got people writing up repair plans, we can't fix the vehicle without a repair plan. So this is so important. This piece of the puzzle is so important. And I think that's part of why people are so interested to come and hear what you guys have to say. And like you were saying, Kyle, leaving with that confidence. It's not just confidence. When you have confidence, then it's peace of mind. And you're like, okay, I can do this. I got this. And that is really powerful, especially in an industry where we're really struggling to figure things out right now. Having that direction is awesome. So thank you guys for taking your time and making the time to go speak on this and meet with everybody at the Southeast Collision Conference. Anything else you guys wanted to say before we wrap this up today?
I mean, like like I said, this was an overall great event. I mean, I was blown away by the attendance. By the way, I mean, like I said, big shout out to, all the sponsors and supporters, but to Southeast Collision Conference, the Carolinas Collision Association, to Wamba. I mean, they put on a hell of a show. I mean, it was a lot of people. I mean, like I said, this was a really well attended event. Classrooms were packed all the way until the last minute, until Saturday afternoon. I mean, like I said, a big shout out to the associations to making this possible, getting great speakers out there and inviting us out there. So again, support them and support the sponsors as well. So thank you.
Yeah, Southeast Conference did an amazing job. I'll second Danny with that. Big shout out to them. They did an awesome job in getting everything ready, working everything. Even when there was issues, they were on it. Like, it went fantastic. I mean, our class was literally the last one of the day before people went and had drinks, and we had over 90 people in attendance up until the very last minute, and we went 30 minutes over. So,
wow.
It was an awesome event, and I couldn't have been more humbled doing it. Especially having our front row in the beginning. Our front row for most of the class, we had Barry Dorn, Aaron Schulenberg, Mike Anderson.
Geez. No pressure.
Two of my mentors are sitting front row. Is like no pressure at all. Just sweat coming down.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for making the time today to come on here. And thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Body Bangin' podcast. And of course, thank you to Lombard Equipment, who, when they need you, they actually answer their phone. You don't go to a recorded line. Love that. So we will see you next time on the next episode, where we'll be talking to another speaker from the Southeast Collision Conference. See you next time. Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things Autobody.